Yeah, yeah.
And I saw that list of names, you probably saw it.
Yeah.
Wilmerstein.
Talk to Dean, he was on.
Yeah, Dee.
Yeah.
How have we not been paying FRS on that?
So I don't understand but she was talking to before you got there about that stuff. You know, what we're doing is illegal, or it's against the IRS. I said, what are you talking about?
It's not illegal or against our, now it's expensive and it shouldn't have been done. Yeah, I screwed it up. It's
But-
either illegal or
But that's what, you know, she said, well, we've been paying him that extra 6% of his salary. I said, first, why did you do that? Says you gotta make an annual contribution, so why didn't you ask for it? You know, until, well, I said, and he's gonna get a W-2 on that. So where is it the contribution?
and hey, how is she involved? See, that's what I can't figure.
I don't know.
I made the mistake of using Casella's contract as a template. I won't do that.
Yeah. Well,
But I can't figure out how she's involved.
Don't I? And you got to run the names of the paper, the positions of the paper for FRS. You put your thing
I didn't see that.
in order to move somebody into the senior executive or the vice president. You got to, I'm telling you, she's talking about running everything. That's why. I thought it was, hey, put this guy in the, see if he goes up.
Your board approves it, we'll do it.
Yeah.
They were calling this morning to get that appointment in such a way, so
Okay.
I'll take it over there and check off on you every day.
Told you I shouldn't have printed
I
no
don't think,
copy.
no, we won't do whatever's right. If it's 50,000 or 100,000.
Whatever.
But how can,
Exactly right. The people who've not been here for 1 year.
you know, she got that one restaurant, and I told her, I said, you get a chance between now and the time you get back over there, you come over there, I ain't looking for problems, I'm looking for answers and solutions. You know, to walk up and just kind of say, that one, you know, this one's fine, this that one's fine. Listen, man.
Mark, they talking about our quarterback.
He's special. I'm telling y'all.
I didn't realize he had a broken finger.
Yeah, played that game with a broken foot.
Yeah, he was dunking basketballs, got his finger caught between the net and the rim and tore the whole thing down. And, when he grabs it, now his finger kind of sticks into the ball instead
I don't care what
grabs
he's doing, he's doing it right.
Yeah, keep doing it, that's for sure.
Of course, his tight ends are hitting him. They don't drop nothing, do they? Golly.
I've just never seen a quarterback throw a kid open. When he lets go of it, it's like they're covered.
I know.
And then they catch it, they're open.
But it gets in there some way. Now, let's see, we don't play this weekend, but we got Clemson.
We gotta go up to Clemson next week.
They play us hard every year. Even when they're not ranked, they play.
It's
hard.
fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good trip right there.
I just hope we get a good bowl game out of this year.
Well, I would think we would.
I would too.
Something involving Bourbon Street or,
Absolutely.
or South Beach is always fun.
Oh, that's good too. Yeah, that
Going to Clemson's game?
Probably.
Are you gonna go?
Yeah, I got a friend in Asheville has 4 tickets. He's asked me to go. I mean, he's really putting a lot of pressure on me.
I bet it is. That place is gonna be crazy, man. They're about that orange now. They'll have it.
It's, you know, Clemson's Argyle with the university. It's not very big. It's a lot like Auburn. It's probably not nearly as big as Auburn.
Well, wasn't it?
It's a small town. It's kind of hard to get in and out of there too. We'll get
One of
up.
them Bowden boys that built that.
He was there. He did okay. He didn't do great there. He was there about 8 years. Tommy. Tommy.
Good ball team this year.
Tommy? What was his
I
first?
think it is.
Jeff. No, Jeff was one at Florida State.
I think it was Tom.
Tommy.
Understand. Let's go get this lovely board out of here.
Box. Full? Ain't too much
I
fun.
did too. I started real quick.
My problem is I want all the protein. I want the fish, I want the chicken, I want the ribs, I want it all in there.
Next.
Getting ahead, Pierce.
now getting over it, so I don't know that again.
So you,
We honored his daughter at Kiwanis today. I'm gonna tell you something. It's a good thing she looks like he's her mother.
yeah?
My wife didn't hear me, but I said she got her looks from her and her smarts from me.
Good thing she didn't hear you.
Yeah, it is a good thing.
What's this? What we're fixing to go over?
Oh, that email I sent you, it's just,
Well, this is the real one.
did I cover everything? Is that what you was asking me about?
In our book,
No, they put the wrong one in the book.
this is it, not the blue.
That's right. That's right, but it's all good. And we're gonna have it up on the screen for you.
Here you go, Madam Clerk.
Did somebody tell you all about,
And I gotta squeeze in here somewhere. This is me,
that boy
right?
on
It's
the
supposed to be me.
place there on Big Old West, Chinese restaurant today, would he still be able to have his business over there?
Yeah.
I said, I think so. I was looking,
Hey, how are you?
Very good, how are you?
I was looking,
Good, how are you, Sarah?
Hey, gal.
man,
Just knock stuff over.
there it is.
Sorry about here. I didn't even see that, huh?
You and I want to move down, we got two sickies right here.
Oh, really? Yeah, we don't wanna be close to you guys. Well, let's get as far away from.
Maybe we can sit over there on the side out.
Yeah.
It's
maybe
where
we
I
can
ate
sit
lunch
out-
today.
maybe we
I
can
ended
sit
up
out
in
in
the-
Maybe we can sit out in the audience.
Don't breathe on
Kelly, where I ate.
Thanks.
us. Let's throw it at me, I just thought.
These books are real.
I got something.
I had Wayne do a
Wow.
study on preparing
We can ask for
planning.
just give us the summaries, and then all these things we can all do. You know, condense them.
It's crazy the cost.
That's $48,000
Stay up and we gotta get.
which doesn't include the planning commission.
Yeah.
Just for the county.
He's got something, she's got something, I don't want what either one of them have.
Yeah.
He made it out like
But
a
I
sick.
think there may be a simple way to do it, and just by the square footage of whatever you can, percentage of that. Because I've told Tom, very few of these business owners, that at least they're not gonna know what the square footage is, and compounds and guys that. But I want to make sure.
Is Amy in town? Yeah.
Apparently so. Apparently
You know,
so.
he might just be it. She couldn't do it. What a sight.
The commission got it.
A what?
The two of them being tied up.
No.
Just do not get in the way.
Thank you. I just,
Do not stop.
Well, she's gotta go that way.
Yeah, gotta go that way.
where you running to?
I ain't going.
Where's the new chair? Is this my new chair?
Yes,
Is this the new one?
that's the new one.
How you know?
Just take our word for it, that's the new
No,
one.
it's not. This one's scratched.
Oh, we scratched it so it looked like the other one.
Who's got my new chair?
Is that one here work?
Huh? Yeah.
This is good as new. Don't jump up and down on it.
I'm gonna jump up and down and see if it squishes.
Leave another new one in.
Are you referring to what, sir?
I thought it was small buffet.
You want to elaborate on that
To the
statement?
fact that they don't make
I
chairs
figured
like
we were gonna
these.
be here a long time.
Gotta get back.
I thought it was small
Close
buffet
fade.
to kind of munch on. You had barbecue? Oh. Oh. About that.
And then my snozes stopped up and then at the fair last night. All that dust, you know.
She did.
Madam Vice Chair, I believe it's time to
I
start.
worked the fair.
Late lunch,
You know, I enjoy the fair. It is such a cross-section of humanity. you know.
late lunch, or we did?
The smorgasbord.
I mean, you get every
Refreshed.
body in the world through the fair.
Yeah,
today.
we're still refreshed. So don't do anything to like, get me unrefreshed, okay?
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Madam Vice Chair, it's 3 o'clock. If you want to start, we can do that. I don't know who the chairman is. Madam Vice, it's 3 o'clock. That's with authority.
We'd like to welcome everyone to our workshop on the 331 corridor standards. If you have a cell phone, would you please mute it at this time? All right. Mr. Jones? would you like to
Thank
take
you,
over
Madam
and
Chair.
Take us through the
Yes, the purpose of this meeting is for commissioners to provide direction to staff. What you have before you and what we have on the screen are, in the black type is what you approved tentatively as the 331 corridor design development standards. We have held 2 public workshops where we've received public comments. You'll find those comments in red both on the screen and on the paperwork in front of you. What we want to do today is to discuss each of those recommendations and make a determination of whether you want it included in the final document, which will be presented to you at a public hearing for consideration of adoption into the Land Development Code. Madam Chair, we're going to ask that we limit public comment today. The statute that requires us to allow public comment says they have to have a reasonable opportunity to discuss at a meeting or prior to a meeting before you vote. What we're going to discuss today came from public comments at public workshops, and there will be ample opportunity for public comment at the public hearings for adoption. So we're certainly not trying to lock anyone out. Today we're just trying to get some direction from the board as to what you want included in that final document for consideration. So as we move along, beginning on line 13, the way the recommendation is that the corridor overlay district shall extend 300 feet from the edge of the right-of-way of US 331 for those parcels of land located in unincorporated Walton County between Interstate 10 and North Shore of Choctawhatchee Bay. It was recommended at one of the meetings that parcels that don't front 331 not be included in the district boundaries. We think it's important that those parcels that are in the 300-foot corridor be included, but we ask your direction on whether you'd like that included or.
Mr. Jones, isn't there a possibility due to the width and length of some of these parcels that you could have a parcel that may only be 100 feet deep?
Absolutely.
And you could have something directly behind it,
That's correct.
and it would be within 300 feet, but in this case, it wouldn't be applicable to it.
If you made it read so that they had to abut the 331 right of way.
Or just the possibility could.
Can you hear us?
Yours is on the way, but the rest of them are.
Okay.
And the possibility could exist that someone owns 2 parcels, one which fronts 331, the second one that does not, and they only want to develop the second one. And so the thought was we would include all of them within the area.
And you may have one that's, 1,000 feet deep, and they move everything back 300, feet.
Yeah,
You're off.
Yeah, I agree that it should be the 300 feet.
So do we have consensus that it should remain as,
300 feet.
Yes.
as intended? Thank you.
Yes.
Not abutting, but just 300 feet.
300 feet, yeah.
So we will reject that, Rick. As you can see, Rick will make the changes as we move along. Line 23, we have pawn shops as prohibited uses. It was requested that they be allowable uses and removed from the prohibited use list.
I don't have a feeling about.
I think, aren't they prohibited? Isn't this come from something else that had kind of
A lot of it
outlined?
came from we
Yeah.
use chapter 13, the Land Development Code, as the basis, but
Yeah,
it's not nearly as broad as chapter 13, and there were some things that were included
yeah.
here that may not be there.
Yeah, I think prohibited uses, I think the list is fine as it is.
And I particularly don't, I mean, flea markets tend over time to get a little overgrown.
Okay?
Well, should we differentiate between indoor and outdoor, either pawn shop or, well, pawn shop?
Well, pawn shop would be indoors.
But as far as flea markets, indoor, outdoor, do we need to go down that road or just? No.
Well, as it's written, outdoor flea markets would be prohibited, therefore indoor would be allowed, but they would still have to meet the other criteria and standards.
I guess I have a question is, if you've got a pawn shop and it meets all the other standards for the scenic nature and the building standards, what's the concern?
Yeah.
The initial thought was the persona that goes with pawn shops, that goes with adult entertainment, that goes with tattoo parlors. Pawn shops would probably be the least offensive of those, and you're right, if they meet the design standards and they keep them up and they meet the other standards, there's probably not a big issue with them. So we can leave them, we can take them out, or we can put them under conditional uses so you can have a little more flexibility what you would require from them.
You know, as I say, I'm not one way or the other with pawn shops. I am flea markets, both, I guess indoor and outdoor. I'm more concerned with that than I am with pawn shops. But and maybe we could make it a conditional use.
Talk about pawn shops, conditional use,
Yes, sir.
and live with that.
I'm inclined to believe that the other standards that are required further on in the reading, assuming,
Yes.
and we may have to come back to this one if that gets changed too, but I would think that the nature and the design of it, and there are some, if you ever watch the reality shows on TV, there are some very exclusive people that go to those pawn shops, at least in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that, at least for the time being, let's consider removing pawn shops from there, but we can come back and visit it at the end if
Okay.
other things get changed.
Have
Okay.
consensus
That works,
on
yeah.
that? All right, we'll remove pawn shops from the prohibited list, so that request will be granted. Flea markets, we want to leave them indoor only.
You mean outdoor? I mean,
Yeah.
indoor.
Outdoor prohibited,
Yeah.
Correct.
okay.
And then what about tattoo parlors? I mean, there again, to me, it's the same as a pawn shop.
Not really. It's,
I mean,
I think,
Took the one I wanted, don't do entertainment, I was gonna do that if I retired.
we get worried. Well, gosh, we're gonna
Rick,
put
we're
him
gonna
out of
leave flea
business.
markets as
One
they
of-
are.
One of the
300
things,
back, 300
one of the things that you'll notice is some of these places kind of co-locate together, and so you get kind of a sense of, like if you go to Daytona Beach, the uses there have basically turned it into a different kind of a, it draws a different, type,
draws a different crowd.
type of crowd. So I think the question is, as far as tattoo parlors go,
whatever y'all decide.
Well, would you also, to be inclusive of that, body piercing businesses?
I think,
Sometimes, they
Body
may,
what?
Body
body piercing,
piercing.
the studs,
No.
all that other stuff goes with it. Not all tattoo parlors body pierce, but, there is quite a few.
The good ones are.
The good ones.
I think that may be getting down into the weeds a little, because there are salons that do a lot of different services, massages, body piercing, teeth cleaning.
Okay, so the request was to allow for tattoo parlors to be allowable use. Do we want to go there, or what's the consensus?
Tattoo parlor?
Whatever y'all want.
Your question is, should we leave tattoo parlors as a prohibited
That's
use?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, from what I'm hearing is the consent, the majority anyhow is yes.
Okay, then we will leave tattoo parlors as it is, and that request is denied. On line 32, we have as conditional uses car washes, truck washes, and other vehicle washes, not applying to those that are ancillary to a principal use. It was recommended that they be allowed unconditionally because they're not prohibited in Chapter 13 of the Land Development Code. We're certainly comfortable with them as a conditional use, and that allows them, and it just allows the board
Yeah,
to.
I think that's, I think that's a good idea.
I can agree with conditional use, because, you know,
Okay.
I notice in Defuniak, a lot of the people
Yeah.
leaving the beach will hit that first car
Yeah.
wash in Defuniak and wash their cars off before they go back to Alabama.
Yeah,
And same question on line 36 for short and long-term commercial storage.
yeah.
Right now it's conditional use, which gives you the flexibility to put some conditions on them.
Yeah.
Still
I'd
good
like
with
it to stay conditional
Okay.
use.
Yeah.
yeah.
That'll
And
stay
then those can
conditional.
get junky pretty quick.
Well, and the traffic, you know, you get a lot of heavy truck traffic as
Right.
well, but,
Building orientation, line 39, as the approved materials, we added wood, and then we added language, these or any other materials may be approved by the BCC. There was some discussion that as materials come about, there may be some things that the board would say, yeah, that works, and it meets our intent. It certainly doesn't give any broad latitude to anyone other than this board, or
I think you ought to limit those because, you could get into some real weeds there.
okay.
And then we're here arguing about whether, you know,
We like
this
that.
looks good, we like
Okay.
that, but including the color schemes, I mean,
Okay,
I guess my question would be, for instance, wood, you're inserting the word wood, but, for instance, wood now on boardwalks is Trex, which is a synthetic. Are we limiting the ability to develop a substitute for these materials that might be equally?
it says similar materials.
yeah, I think that's covered in
So-
the,
Do you want, maybe I misunderstood what you said. Do you want to leave that in, that this proposed change of these or any other materials?
No. No, because I think you're gonna get into, it says here, no corrugated material, sheet metal, or barren and unfinished cinder block.
But see, this says that would be approved by the board.
I know, but do you want to get down in the weeds on approving, you know, materials for the building other than what you've specified? I particularly don't, but, you know, because I think it would be.
And I would agree, I don't want to
Yeah.
get, the first part is pretty specific about what is allowed, but if somebody's come up with a new product, let's say, a synthetic whatever, that might be as equally good as, just to give the board the opportunity to say, we could do that.
Well, aren't
But isn't that
materials,
covered under similar materials?
isn't that covered under the building department? Don't they have specific building materials that you can and can't use
well, just.
that
where-
meet the Florida
Yeah,
hurricane
if
codes
it's-
and all
if
that?
it's code requirement, yeah, but I mean, you can do that with a lot of different things. And the intent was simply if there's a new product or some
Yeah.
version of a different product that somebody wants to say, hey, this is what we'd like to use, but, again, you do have the word similar materials up in the, on line 41, that could cover that as well.
Okay?
The other discussion there was some limiting of color schemes. We had one of our planners work some language there that if you want to have some limitations, we can provide some more definitive language. The comment when it was there is, do we want deep haze purple or some other wild and crazy color? I don't know where you draw the line or how you draw the line unless you get some very specific colors that say these are either permitted or omitted.
think we should be limiting the color.
I don't either, mainly because when you get into color schemes, you get a light white, a beige
Yeah,
white,
that's right,
tan
that's
white,
right.
and then, you
And
get,
then you've got there's somebody making some objective standards
Yeah.
as are called, so let's eliminate the color schemes.
And I agree, but just so you know, there is a color scheme for the 331, excuse me, the scenic
Scenic
corridor.
corridor, yeah.
But you don't want to include that in these.
Isn't it the Munsell chart or is that the sand?
Munsell chart.
Munsell
Yes.
chart,
Yeah.
yes.
Line 51, it was recommended that anytime we have used the term shall, be replaced with the word must. I don't know that one's any more
Well,
compelling than the
most
other.
of your criminal statutes will basically say shall, which means you must.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see the,
I didn't
we
know
would wanna
that
change
was
it.
one of the comments, so we good with shall? Okay.
and under the definition of shall, put
Must.
Yeah,
We can do that.
thank you in the devil.
Number 54, there was a recommendation that exemptions be checked for small parcel exemptions as in Chapter 13 regarding eminent domain. Wayne and I have looked. We don't find anything in Chapter 13 dealing with small parcels or eminent domain. So we're going to strike that if that's okay. It didn't strike me when it was brought up at the meeting, but we took it down anyway.
Let me ask you one question too. It says, all other aspects of Walton County Land Development Code shall govern parking requirements. Is
Yes, ma'am.
that, okay. If this is adopted, you know what question I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
it's whatever the current,
whatever the current parking is, this is what this would be. Is that,
yes, so if the
is that
parking
everybody?
changes, then this would adopt the changes automatically.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Just-
exactly.
Just question whether y'all want that to be also applied to this area too. You know,
I would think,
you would
my
think so.
personal opinion is, yes, we probably should. Or we're gonna run into the same problems eventually, maybe 30 years from now, but eventually you'll run into the
Yeah,
same problem.
yeah, okay.
In lines 75, where we're talking about coordinated access, there was some question about the legalities and how that would exactly play out. And Sid, I don't know if you had opportunity to check into that?
This was the question about the U.S. Supreme Court case?
Yeah.
I don't think it's in Ohio, but I can write you a legal memorandum.
Okay. We will certainly continue that and make sure we're within our legal rights to do that. And we believe we are.
What to require,
Some coordinated accesses and designate them. So Rick, they're gonna continue to look at that. In line 82, it was recommended that we add the term lift station, and we certainly agree with that. And where it says from public view, there on line 81, it was recommended that read viewing from US 331, which is
public-
probably reasonable to be.
Yes.
So we're okay with that?
That depends on like whose eyesight, good, bad, farsighted, nearsighted,
With mine, it's,
you know, binoculars.
In line 102, where we talk about, there's a word there that says buffer, displaying the 25-foot landscaped. Well, I guess we've already got that. Recommend,
So you're gonna
I think
allow
line-
10% of the buffer area to be
yeah,
used
landscape
Should be
before buffer.
landscape buffer.
You're right.
for
Yeah.
display of merchandise.
Right.
That works,
Right.
that's fine.
So the word landscape will be inserted before buffer in line 97.
Okay.
Okay, so there's gonna be 10% of the buffer area, landscape buffer area can be used for display of merchandise. What, okay, well, okay.
The idea, Commissioners, if you have a car lot or a
Yeah.
boat dealership, they can build some permanent structure in that landscape buffer for to put a car or a boat or tractor, but you can't take a rolling rack of dresses out there on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So it has to be a permanent display area.
Okay,
Or we can have it where they can have a rolling rack of dresses on Saturday. You don't.
okay. Well, I guess the question is, what are you gonna require in the landscape buffer? Is it gonna require just grass or
It's
trees?
it's
or-
here. Yeah, we got trees and grass and stuff.
Okay,
We had some interesting discussion about trees. It was requested on line 108 that we remove the cedar tree and add a laurel cypress or a leyland cypress. And then it was requested we keep cedar trees. So some say yes to cedar, some say no to cedar. What say you to cedar?
Let's keep cedar and add the cypress.
Okay, we'll keep the cedar and
Keep the
add,
cedar, add the cypress, keep out the palm trees.
and the palm trees was requested to be put back in, but we're not even gonna mention
We're
that.
not even gonna mention it.
I actually think palm trees would be quite nice.
Like I said, we're gonna mention palm trees. And again,
People that they're in Florida.
Good
when,
cheap, that's the reason people like them.
you know, there's 3 of them right out there.
Good cheap,
Again, it was recommended we replace the word shall with the word must, and I think we're comfortable with shall.
Shall is a good word.
And if we go over to line 159, it was recommended that an exemption be defined for more than 15 parking spaces depending on the type of business, that some larger businesses may need more than 15 spaces between their interrupted with plantings. And I think we worked hard to get to 15 spaces, so that's probably a good number. So I recommend that we leave that at 15. And the recommendation that adding a provision that if landscaping dies, it should be replaced in 15 days is consistent with our other landscaping. So that's, I think we should include that.
Okay.
And again, a recommended exemption for small parcels, which I really didn't understand, other than a small parcel would be a small building with a little bit of parking, as opposed to a big building with no parking.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be careful on what we allow small parcels to do, but.
You could divide up a big tract into a bunch of small parcels and
Right.
never
Have no parking?
Postage stamp.
Yeah. So we're good to leave it at 15 spaces, add the provision that if landscaping dies, it should be replaced in 15 days, which is consistent, and no exemption for small parcels.
Correct.
Okay?
Yes.
In signs, all of the comments were geared around billboards. Actually, there was a good bit of discussion, and that's something that can be discussed for quite some period of time, anywhere from a complete prohibition to making no change at all. We had some lengthy discussion in our meetings with the board regarding the 3,000-foot measurement in a radius that would not allow any new boards within that 3,000 feet. We're certainly comfortable with that. The DOT standard allows them, as we understand it, no more than 1 every 1,000 feet. Our land development code allows 1 billboard every 1,500 feet, so this is considerably more restrictive than that. But whatever you decide, and spoke to Mr. Davis, and we'll provide some more detailed language. Apparently there's where the DOT is taking right-of-way or buying right-of-way for the widening of 331, there's some provision that allows those billboard companies to relocate those if they're bought their leased property. So we're going to have some language that allows them to replace those, or it's going to cost the county a ton of money.
Yeah.
So that may violate this 3,000 feet if that's where we stay, but we'll bring you that language before we have the hearings on the.
Do we want to stick with the 1 per 3,000 in a radial fashion, or go with what DOT is and it's 1,500 feet or whatever linear?
Well, our code is 1,500 feet. So that's
Linear or
linear,
radius?
Linear. And I believe DOT is 1,000 feet linear. So,
It can be as little as 500 feet.
okay.
I asked Sam with our GIS department to give me a map of where all the billboards were in the Funiac. Is Sam out there somewhere?
Wayne?
No,
we've got
Sam's
the
had some
Thing for me.
elements the past several days. He's not here tonight.
Yeah, but I mean, I had asked.
Only
got-
in the Funiac or along
No,
the whole
let me finish my sentence here, people. Starting in the Funiac, going through Freeport and coming all the way, down, yeah. And there is very few places that people are gonna be able to put a billboard because, I mean, they're stacked except for like Negosi and, Eglin.
Oh, you mean
They're
there's
pretty
already-
well,
There's already there.
that are already there. There's a whole bunch that,
I
you
think
know,
there's 30-some, is that right?
that are within, 3,000 feet of each other.
34
What
was
if-
the number.
What if somebody's lease runs out? You know, like they've leased the land for a billboard site and their lease expired. When we went through this before, we were told that, not here, but another location, that you couldn't prohibit them or make them go away, but if their lease expired, you could say no, you know, they couldn't renew.
I guess, if the people owning the land didn't renew the lease, they
South
couldn't.
of 20,
Wow.
on 331,
Yeah.
south of the interstate on 331,
Uh-huh.
I would figure that somewhere around Fort versus Lucas.
What's,
There's nothing between there
and that's,
and.
That's negotiating, isn't
Is
it?
that Freeport or
Negotiation,
Negotiate?
Eglin, and you got this little area here which is Freeport.
okay.
Can you see it?
And then
Yeah,
what
Freeport's pretty well,
And this is, what is this from here to here?
Well, that is a little bit in our area here. This is the city's franchise area, I guess, how they chopped it up. And that appears to be open to us. And
This would be
between
over
here and there.
I know between 20 and here, you're peppered with them.
About 20 on the south of 20.
So there's a bit that would be open.
Yeah, so I think, I like the 3,000 feet. But are we gonna be challenged in court?
But, well, just so you understand, if we have 3,000 feet, we're going to have, we're going to have signs within the 3,000 feet because of the requirement that we allow the current sign to be
Right, well,
relocated.
Yeah, well, we already do. I mean,
Yeah.
they would just I'm asking, okay, so they're taking this piece of property, so I'm gonna move my billboard from here to here.
Right.
You may not be able to move it there, though, but we've got to have some allowance that says you can erect it somewhere else.
I think
And-
we'd be,
and not real clear on
wouldn't we
whether there's
be,
a span or,
wouldn't we be in a better legal position if we had it every 1,500 feet? Because that's where we are now.
It's, short answer is yes.
Because there's only 2 locations where you're gonna really have any more. And I know Sarah likes the ones that flip every
Oh, yeah, I love
30
those, yeah.
seconds and the
Yeah, those are my
flashing
favorite.
ones.
Yes, only because it's consistent with what we've done in the past.
I know, me too.
I mean, we're good. We'll put 1,500 linear feet, whatever the board elects.
I just hate to see any more come in, I guess is my concern. I hate to see any more billboards that we have now.
I understand that we've got to allow those that are being uprooted by DOT to replace them there. And that what we're talking about is any new
ones.
beyond and I agree with Sarah. I think 3,000 feet is reasonable.
I think legal, if we could get legal to look into, what's happened in the past, because I do know that we tried this in Central Florida, and the billboard lobby came out, and,
You think?
Yeah.
We'll
it
make
cost
sure.
a
We'll
lot
look
of
at the
money
statute.
to,
We'll make sure, and we've already been communicating with billboard company attorneys about it, so.
And-
I do know that what's there, we can't prohibit from being relocated.
right, no, I do
Understand.
know that as well, yeah.
And can we, I believe, I talked with Larry about that, the sign that bothers me the most, you're heading down 331, you're out of Freeport, and there where Brandon Oaks is that billboard that at night is so bright I can't see to drive. Can we, number one, prohibit that kind, or if we can't, can we have a requirement that at night the decibels or whatever you call that stuff be lowered enough that it is not blinding to a driver?
Don't know off the top of my head, but we'll certainly let you know
Yeah.
before we
You
vote
know,
on it.
I would think there's
I mean,
statutes.
that billboard is blinding at night.
Well, I think that's gonna be the trend of the future
Sure it is.
It is.
is that instead of a stagnant, it's gonna be digital.
And there's some places that are doing some, if you'll take 3 of those down, you can put up a digital. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get some of this moved.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add too, I mean, and from my past experiences, that the digital billboards can be controlled from their brilliance and the lighting, and they can have the auto adjusters on the billboard, so they're not always bright all the time. So there's some things you can do with that to really dampen that very bright effect. I've seen some that you don't know they're digital until you get close to them, because they mimic almost what a static billboard would look like. So there are things that can be done.
I think it's very distracting to, drivers with bad eyesight like mine. I mean, they really are, to me, they're blinding. And, I don't, another issue with signage is, for example, like Walgreens in Defuniak, they have a digital sign as part of their signage. I don't mind that so much, because it is small and they're not very bright. I'd like somehow, if they were in here and stayed, for us to have an agreement or a contract whenever, as they build this building or what, that during an emergency or an Amber Alert or whatever, that those are turned over to us or the Sheriff's Department to, be able to put warning signs, and I believe that is done in other places. So I'd like to see that done.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
That may be more of a good neighbor thing than, but it's a great idea.
We can ask them to be a good neighbor, can't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we should.
Yeah.
There was a recommendation in line 184 that a scenic corridor sign committee be formed, or a 331 corridor committee for the approval of signs. We think that's a level of bureaucracy that we probably don't need.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And we have a wonderful design review board that's doing signs along the scenic corridor. If you want somebody to review them, that would be, to me, the appropriate place for that.
I think these are going to be such that staff can, in their review, can take care
Yeah,
of.
if you want to go to a board, I don't want to form a new one, is what
I
I was trying to say.
I
go to enough board meetings.
And then 186, Commissioner Commander, is some of the things you were talking about. If you're not going to prohibit the digital display signs, recommend that, there's some restrictions on the brightness of them, and somebody smarter than me is going to have to figure that out, so that won't be hard to find someone. And then there was some discussion about windows displays and signs that are blocking the ability to see inside a business. It's recommended that we ask to reduce or eliminate temporary illuminated portable outdoor signs. So the two last issues are windows and signs, signs and windows would be more appropriate. Do we want to limit the percentage of space that a sign in the storefront window can obstruct?
I think there's a state statute dealing with convenience stores and the type of signage or objects that are there to limit the amount of how you can look in there. It was for security things. There's also another one about if it's after a certain time, you've got to have it enclosed and two people on. There's a few things that go along with that. I don't know. I mean,
Well, if you look at just for example, that plaza down here that's got retail therapy and it's got the rentals and then it's got the Japanese steakhouse, you can't really see inside any of those businesses, but you can see that there's something going on. Do we want to see inside businesses? Is that?
I think more of anything, it was a security, safety issue.
Of being able to see inside businesses?
Yeah, but I mean, you would think that if you're running a store, you'd want it to be a safety.
and I think, and this is just my take on this, state statute will help dictate those safety protocols that you got to take for certain types of convenience store operations. So I would think just let the state statute drive the boat on that.
And some places have dark windows, to keep the sun out, and you can't see in them anyway.
Yeah, some restaurants do that for
Yeah.
mood effect,
Yeah, I'm thinking of Beefs, there in Defuniak, Beef O'Brady's. You
Yeah.
can't see in those windows.
No. Digital signs, we want to come up with some language that'll regulate the brightness. Okay. What about the portable, changeable temporary signs?
hate that.
It's got the blinking arrows at the top of them, says,
I hate that.
What, where are we now?
I'm sorry, on line 190, I believe it's
Okay.
189, 190.
Temporary illuminated portable outdoor signs?
The ones with the changeable letters, you know,
Oh, yeah, those.
they,
It says to reduce from what?
Yeah. Reduce or
just
eliminate.
make them smaller. You can have a little, you can have a little one.
Or eliminate?
Yeah, yeah.
What about sandwich?
Eliminate them?
You know, one of the things we have along 30A is, and it's prohibited, but everybody does it, it's very difficult to, is sandwich board
Right.
signs. Is they're everywhere. So,
Well, it's probably, that probably wouldn't be, I mean, you're gonna have a 55 or 60 mile an hour speed limit there, so, unless they're big sandwich.
Unless they're big sandwiches, you ain't gonna see them anyway.
big
Yeah.
sandwiches.
Thank you, commissioners. We will
What did we
incorporate
decide
these
on the la- What did we
changes.
decide on the last one?
What was the last one?
What did we, the last, the,
Affordable signs?
the signs with arrows?
None.
To
No.
eliminate them.
They're gone, yes.
Okay.
The blinking things that say like sale today
Yeah.
or something like that.
Are we gonna put in anywhere that shall means will in our definition?
Council?
Shall be.
Shall.
Shall means must.
Shall means you shall do it.
Although there is a Supreme Court case that actually said a statute that used the term shall. In that particular instance, the legislature didn't mean shall, but that's,
Well, we mean will.
Too many lawyers.
So-
involved.
Too many lawyers.
Commissioners, we will take that direction and we'll incorporate it into a draft that will be presented. We'll ask you at a regular meeting to set a public hearing to consider that for adopting it into the land development code. So that's all we have, Mr. Chairman.
Take a recess.
Anything else? We'll take a recess. 4 o'clock.
no, we'll need to, it's a workshop meeting, we'll need to
Okay, so
adjourn.
Need to close it?
Yes, sir, it's a workshop.
Okay.
okay.
Need a motion to close?
You have to adjourn it because you started.
I have to adjourn it because I
you
started.
started? Go
We're
ahead.
adjourned till 4 o'clock.
Okay.
You got yours.
Jonesy boy?
Latest.